I'm Corey. I'm one of the members of Spartan Branding, the pro team. I'm your digital marketing director, and today we're going to talk about using social media to keep your business connected. So with so many social media platforms available, it's difficult to know what makes the most sense for your business. You probably ask yourself questions like, should I have a presence on every platform? What kind of content should I post? How often should I post? How do I get people to engage with my content? And if I'm not selling anything online, does my brand even need social media? The main takeaway, if nothing else, from this entire presentation is don't waste time and resources in places where your target isn't active. And we're going to get into a little bit more details about that later. We've put together 8 steps for social media success, and they go kind of like this. So number one thing you should do is clarify your brand's message, then define your target audience, choose the platform that fits that audience, build a content schedule, build your content framework. Then you can create the content, schedule your content, and then engage with your followers and other brands. So the first part of the process is clarifying your message. And just as you would on your website, you should be able to answer these 3 questions pretty quickly, the same on your social media platform. So what do you do? Why does it matter? And then how do I do business with you? I'm going to give you an example. So this is our Spartan Branding Facebook page. So right away on the left, you can see that this is our banner image. And it tells you our brand, our logo, and then we're creating stronger brands with marketing that works. Right underneath our name, it says we are a marketing agency. It's really important to go ahead and pick what type of business you have so that people can decide immediately what type of business you are. And then the screen on the right shows you that we filled in our address, we've enabled map, and we have our web address, our phone number, and an email address, and our hours of operation. A lot of businesses kind of skip these parts, no matter the platform, because they think, oh, they'll just go to our website and see that. But it's actually really important to be able to answer all of those questions, immediately on your Facebook page or your LinkedIn page. The second part of the process is defining your target audience. So defining a clear audience allows for you to focus your content and streamline your message for increased effectiveness. And why that's important is because if you're able to kind of decide an age range, the gender, a profession or industry, location, interest, or maybe even financial status for your target, then you can increase effectiveness by talking directly to that person in every part of your content. This is probably one of the more difficult parts whenever you're just getting started is choose the platform that fits your audience. So go where your target audience is. Where does your audience live? How do you want to engage with your audience? And are you B2B or B2C? These are questions that matter. The top 8 social media platforms in the US right now are Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and LinkedIn. We're going to kind of focus in on the 2 that make the most sense for businesses today. So we'll start with Facebook, and around 7 in 10 US adults, 69% or 183 million people use Facebook. It is the leading social media platform, and as you'll see here, the age range is pretty well split. You've got just under 80% of 18 to 29-year-olds, and 80% of 30 to 49-year-olds are on Facebook. 75% of women and 63% of men use Facebook. Education-wise, 75% have some college and 74% have college or higher. And income is also, pretty across the board. So 69% have less than $30,000 as a income, and 75% have, or 74% have at least 75,000 or higher. As we switch over to LinkedIn, you'll see that it changes a little bit. This is a really good example of how all social media platforms are not created equal. You have different people in different places. So the age range dramatically switches whenever you switch to LinkedIn. You've got 37% of your 30 to 49-year-olds and 24% of 50 to 64. It's important to note here that in your 18 to 29 age range, you only have 28% of them. Also, 21% female and 24% of men are on LinkedIn. This is where the most dramatic difference is for LinkedIn. Over 50% of people on LinkedIn have college or higher, a college degree or higher. And the income, 49% of people that make $75,000 or higher are on LinkedIn. So, depending on what your product or service is, you can kind of see that Facebook and LinkedIn, or maybe some of your other accounts like Snapchat, are going to cater to a different audience. And so it's important to determine where your target is. Once you've kind of determined who your target is and you've chosen your platforms and you've gotten everything all, branded out on those accounts, then you can start to build a content schedule. And, laying out a schedule ensures that you'll be consistently connected with your audience. So some things to kind of take into consideration there are, what are the best days to post? What are the best times to post of day? You may not have realized this before, but there are better times to post than others. So it could be that you've been posting just consistently every Monday morning, first thing, that's how you start your week. And maybe that's not the peak time for you to post. Also, you're probably wondering how often should you post? And the way that you can kind of prepare for a content schedule is create a spreadsheet or a grid to use. Talking about highest engagement. So this kind of shows you a heat map of Facebook. You'll see that Tuesday through Friday, in the morning, I would say like from 9 or 10 a.m. until about 2 p.m. Those are the more, the better times for you to post for engagement. And then you'll see that the weekends are a lot lighter. People are actually less active on Facebook during the weekend. And here's the heat map for LinkedIn. So, it's really interesting. You can see that people are more active on Wednesdays and in the morning time. So 8, 9, 10 o'clock, that's usually when people are probably getting their day started. So they might check in with LinkedIn to see what's going on, if there's anything new that their, other brands and friends are talking about. And then there's another pickup again right after lunch. So Thursday after 12 o'clock, so around 1 or 2, that's another peak time for you to post content to LinkedIn. And as you're thinking about how often you should post and on what days and what time, this is an example of a content schedule. So just a basic sprint of 90 days. So we typically, clients that we run social media management for, we go in a 1 to 3 month range where we lay out the weeks kind of like this and determine, all right, we're going to post 3 times a week or 4 times a week or alternate. And this kind of helps you map out what your schedule is going to be. So in a generic format like this, we see, all right, we need 45 pieces of content. And then you'll see over to the right, this is where we start actually deciding what that looks like. How many quotes do we need? How many statistical posts do we need? How many blogs? This is how you plan out what you're going to do. So then you build your content framework after you have the schedule. So preparing ahead of time keeps your content clear and impactful. And you should ask yourself questions like, what types of posts do I want out there? What are they going to look like? And what do I need to say with them? A lot of companies, you may have like a service or product that you're highlighting for 30 days. And so your content might need to wrap around whatever that product or service is, especially if you're running an ad. So say you have a special or a deal that you're running as a Facebook ad or maybe even a Google ad for 30 days, then you can wrap your content around that to support the ad that you have running. Here's an example of a content framework. So you can see on the left, we have different types of content. So it could be a quote, a statistic, a blog, an article, an image, a tweet, or a comment. If we have an event coming up, like a webinar, we might want to make a post about that. If there's a holiday coming up, or a sale or a special. And so then once you kind of map out what types of content it is, Then you can talk about, well, what actually is on the content. Is it a quote? What is the statistic that's going to go on there? And then the copy that goes with it. You don't ever want to just post a picture or post something without making a comment with it. On Facebook, it's at the top. On Instagram, it's on the bottom, to kind of explain why this is important to your audience. And then for us, because, as before, as an example, we said that there, 45 pieces of content might go through a run. You might not be able to sit down and do 45 pieces of content all in one sitting. So on the right, I use a simple created and scheduled check mark so that I know, where I am if I have to come back to it. So then once you kind of have your schedule down and your framework down, then you can create your content. So decide what types of content are most useful for your audience and reflect your brand the best. And, this is where we get into graphics, videos, blogs, third-party articles. Yes, it is okay to share third-party articles that support your brand. Images, tweets, holiday posts, or promotions that you might have going on. And here's some examples of graphics and videos that we've used recently. So you'll see that the top middle one, life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it. This is just a branded quote that we would post to Instagram or Facebook. And then below that is more of a graphic post that, if you hit the pause button now, you'll fall behind later. Both of these still use the same color scheme and look okay together. On the sides, you can see examples of videos. So the one on the left is like a commercial grade video that we built that talks about why marketing, is a big task and why you should slide over and let us do the driving with marketing. The one on the right is more timely. So Greg and David sat down and did a Zoom meeting together and just talked about how you continue to lead and grow a business during uncertain times. And it actually ended up being really good. So we produced it. We put a banner over the top of it, put it on our YouTube channel, and then we shared that to our social media. We've talked a little bit about blogs. And so here are two different ways that you can post blogs depending on the platform. So the one on the right is a link to our blog. So this is the picture that comes up, the thumbnail with the blog, and then we just, make a comment with it. Are you really doing everything you can to market your business? Here are 7 essentials. Another way to do it is on the left, do more of a long form post. And that's really good for LinkedIn or Facebook. So it could be that you put the first 3 or 4 paragraphs to get someone kind of locked into your content and then give them the link to read more. That also helps with SEO too, if you're putting the same, a lot of text that's in the blog on your social media. Creating a brand. So as you're creating your content, think about who you're talking to and what it's going to look like. So here's an example of one of our clients, Vitendi. And you can see that on the right, this is a screenshot of their Instagram. And you'll notice that the color scheme is all kind of the same. They use the blues and the greens, pops of yellow. The type of, the target audience is very clear that they're talking to younger people, and their message is consistent. So Instagram is a really good example of why every single post that you put kind of needs to stay on brand, both in color palette and message, because you're going to be able to look at it all in one place in a grid like that. Another example for Vitendi and staying on brand is a tweet that they had the other day. So reminder that during these uncertain times, be kind, be compassionate, be human. They used hashtag COVID-19 because that's what's happening right now, and hashtag be human. So this is on brand for the type of company that they are, but it's also relevant to what's happening right now. So once you've created your content and you have it all mapped out, then you can schedule your content. So drop the pressure of posting content every day by hand. We get in the habit all the time of, scrolling through Facebook or scrolling through Twitter, Instagram, and you see people are posting all the time. And that makes a lot of sense for someone who's posting like, well, this is what I had for breakfast today, or, weekend trip here. Whenever you're posting for your business, it's a lot of pressure to come up with something that's engaging to your target audience every single day, like you should be posting now. So you can use platforms like Buffer, HeyOrca, HubSpot, Sprout Social, Hootsuite, Agorapulse, Later, or Sendable. That's just some of the options. And then we personally use Sprout Social. We've used a lot of the other ones too, but this is what makes sense for our business right now to take the pressure off of having to pull out your phone every single day and decide what it is you're going to say. This is an example of, another benefit of using a scheduler. So this is from Sprout Social. You can see that I've added in our graphic on the right. This is what it's going to look like. I type in the copy. How to deal with your difficult moments will define you as much, if not more, than your most successful ones. And this is the greatest cheat ever on a lot of schedulers, is that they'll tell you optimal send times, best days and times, and that's specific to your page. So the heat maps that I showed you before are, everywhere. These are just the most engaging times, but they're actually peak times for your brand too, because depending on what type of service or product you have or where you are, geographically, it can make a difference on when your highest engagement is. So once you've done all of that, you're not done. Just because you put your content out there doesn't mean that all of a sudden everything's going to go viral. Everyone's going to start following your content and you're going to be a celebrity. Kim Kardashian has to do this step 8, and that's engage. So you have to follow other accounts. You have to like other posts, comment on other posts, share other people's posts with unique comments, respond to DMs or direct messages, and like and respond to comments on your posts. So the first couple ones are really important because you have to go out and tell people to follow you. It's kind of like a handshake. So if your brand has no followers, we all have to start at 0. So whenever you first create your account, only your mom follows your Facebook page, or only your best friend likes every single post that you put on Instagram for your business because they're your big supporters. You have to go out and find other relevant accounts to follow and engage with them and their followers. So a big brand that has a lot of followers that's in line with your brand, go and start engaging with their followers, because then they will come and engage with you. That's the only way to do it. So how should you pivot during a crisis? Things are a little different now. During a crisis, you can't act as if it's just business as usual. It's likely that your business has been affected in several ways that are important to share with your client. So let's talk about what's important. Ask yourself every single time you're getting ready to post something about a crisis-related topic, is this relevant to your audience? So some examples are, have your hours changed? Have you closed any locations? Have your service offerings changed? Or do you have a new process for conducting business? Or are you offering a new product or solution? A lot of people are really getting good at pivoting their business and offering different products or different solutions. A lot of businesses now are starting to create masks or working on creating parts for ventilators. And that's a new product. That's a new solution. And so that's important. That's relevant to your audience. You should also adjust your tone. So show empathy and compassion. Use this as an opportunity to humanize your brand in a positive way. Here are my 2 favorite examples that I've seen recently. So Cooper Electrical Construction Company, they posted this. So it's a couple pictures of what looks like, a crew out on a work site, but they say, as the coronavirus continues to have a major impact on many businesses, Cooper is pleased to be able to pivot in a positive direction. Instead of laying off employees, we've been sending them to volunteer with North Carolina Baptist for disaster relief from Hurricane Florence. So it's on brand because it's still them doing work, but it shows a little bit of compassion and makes their brand a little bit more human because they're reacting in a different way to the crisis. On the right, a local restaurant here, Rio Grande, they're offering toilet paper, paper towels, and sanitation products with the purchase of your meal. So you get takeout from them. You can add on these things for a really reasonable price. And that's really good because, number one, they're identifying a problem that we have right now. Maybe in your area, it's not a problem, but for here, these items have been scarce. So they are providing a solution while also meeting their clients where they are. This is a problem for all of us. And so they've created a solution to that problem. So let's talk about what's not important information. Ask yourself, do your clients need to know about your internal pivots? The greatest tweet that I've seen. Oh, sweet. I was wondering how every corporation I've ever given my email to was handling COVID-19. I'm sure I can relate. My inbox has been just overwhelmed with all of the things that every business in the world is doing to handle this. And so think to yourself, should this be an email to my employees, or does everyone really need to know what we're doing to pivot? So this is really important to note. Don't let your social media page become a coronavirus newsroom. Think about that. Unless, of course, you are a news provider, in which case my hat is off to you, because that's a really tough position to be in right now. But it's easy to go on social media and stay up with the news and find new content. And it doesn't have to go on your business page. Everyone is going to the same news outlets that you are to kind of get these updates. So your page doesn't need to become a newsroom. We're going to talk about a few hard rules here. Number one, perform regular audits of scheduled content. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So if you're scheduling things in a week sprint or even a month sprint, you need to be going in and do regular audits to make sure that content is still relevant now. Our economy and our world is changing almost daily. So I would say that every few days, make sure that the content that you've scheduled and it's just out there and you've forgotten about it, make sure that it's still relevant. If you're inviting people over for a barbecue that you have at your business next week, you might want to change that. Keep your tone empathetic and upbeat. Support and encourage others. So, you may not know how this is affecting someone personally. They may have a family member who is affected by this. And so you want to remain upbeat, because there's so much negativity everywhere. You really don't need to play into that. Stick to your brand, stick to how your company or your business is pivoting to create more solutions for your clients. Just stay in that lane. And then never make light of the crisis. Never make light of a crisis ever. I know that it's really tempting because there are lots of memes that you may find humorous. And those are great for your personal pages, but maybe not that smart for your business, because you'd never want to eliminate a prospect or a client unnecessarily by offending them. And then also, you don't want to look like you're trying to profit from this, or you're insensitive to job loss and financial problems people are enduring. Here's a really good example. I met someone recently whose business is to help companies transition to a remote situation. So clearly his business is really booming right now. He's doing really, really well, but he's not boasting about that on his social media and saying, oh, well, clearly you have to do business with us because, if you don't pivot to working from home, then you're going to fail. That's insensitive. And you don't want to highlight problems that people are having that benefit you. You just want to offer solutions for them and meet them where they are. So how our situation is changing is like this. Social distancing basically equals more screen time. We're working remotely. We're going to school online. If you have little ones at home, that's a lot of fun. We're streaming videos. We're looking for frequent news updates. We're searching for DIY and home project ideas. Somebody said recently that in the next month, everyone's lawn is going to be like perfect. It's going to look like it's from Stepford, because we're all, taking much better care of our yard since we're all home all the time. So let's look at this. In 2019, for a baseline, the average American spent more than 3 hours on a smartphone per day. And most usage was dedicated to messaging and social media, as well as navigation. So that's more than 3 hours. And that was our baseline before this happened. Now, self-quarantine and the closing of bars, restaurants, and public venues means that we're spending a lot more time on social media. Here's a really big example. Instagram saw a 76% increase in daily accumulated likes on posts or ad posts over the last 2 weeks. So what that means is in the last 2 weeks, they've seen 76% more likes on ad posts. And it's harder to get people to like your ad. They'll like your content, but whenever people see an ad or something promoted, they're less likely to engage. So that's really big. How often should my business post now? And this is hard, all right? You should be posting valuable and relevant content daily across your channels, across the channels that make sense for your business every single day, which means that you need to be increasing that content calendar. So what does this mean? You should take the 8 steps for social media success that we talked about earlier, and these are the changes that you need to make to that. So pivot your brand's message. If you're doing something different now, if you're offering a different service or product, then your message is going to change a little bit. Focus on your target audience. Don't leave them. Just because you feel like, oh my gosh, all of this stuff is happening and changing, don't leave your target audience. They're still there, and they're still the ones that you want to talk to. Stick with the platform that fits your audience. You know, there are a lot of social media platforms out there, and I'm not saying that you don't belong on all of them. Some brands do, but it's much better to give 100% to one platform than to give 20% to 5 platforms, if that makes sense. You need to build a more robust content schedule. Stay flexible with your content framework. So as we were saying before, how the world is changing almost daily now, you got to be flexible with the types of content that you're posting. The example I showed you of David and Greg creating a video of just them talking about how to be a successful leader right now, that was just something that they decided to do. They were flexible. They just made a different piece of content that's timely, that matters to our clients. Create content that stays on message. So you're still talking about what problems you are solving for your customers. You're not talking about awful things or negative things. You're still talking about how you're solving your customers' problems. Schedule your content in week sprints. So I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So instead of going 30 days out or 90 days out, currently I'm scheduling things just a few days at a time for Spartan Branding. And then, of course, engage with empathy and compassion. Now is the best time for you to humanize your brand without having to say things like, oh, we're all in this together. You know, everyone keeps saying that we're here with you, but you can really humanize your brand by, doing something like Cooper Electric did, by saying, this is how we're taking care of our employees right now. And we're doing something good for our local community. That's engaging with empathy and compassion. What this doesn't mean: don't hit pause on your social media content and marketing. This is a time for your brand to connect with your clients and prospects more often in a meaningful way. Your competition is not disengaging. So now is not the time to just say, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just not going to do anything. This is actually an opportunity for you to connect with your clients and prospects in a really meaningful way. Have conversations with them in a thread, on a post. Engage with them as your company. So I'm Corey Auden with Spartan Branding. Here is my email address, my phone number, and our website. We're going to open up to Q&A right now if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can contact me there and ask me anything that you might need.
Hey, Corey, we've got a question from Doug about how often can you repeat content and how important are hashtags on your content?
So it depends on the platform. Normally, if you have content that gets good engagement, it's really okay to recycle that content. If it's working, keep doing it. Create content that's similar to that. We definitely recycle content on a monthly basis. So I look at things in a 30-day window. If something did really good last month, then I will weave it into our new content. Hashtags are really important on Twitter and Instagram. So there are different tools you can use, like display purposes, that'll tell you what hashtags are trending right now on Instagram, and it'll tell you what other hashtags go with that to help you kind of increase how often you show up. Okay, I'm going through some of the comments right now. Sally says, a recent study from Sprout Social or on organic posts shows the following. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the content. Sally is talking about, the amount of characters that you put on a post. So it says, 40 to 80 characters on Facebook, 70 to 100 characters on Twitter, 138 to 150 on Instagram, and 50 to 100 on LinkedIn. And really, I mean, it's good to kind of have a base for what you're trying to do, but good content that engages with the right people is going to do better. So if you're not getting any engagement on your post, it's because there's something off. You're not saying the right thing. So even if you only use, one sentence, if it's connecting and people are engaging with it, then you know that you're on brand. All right. Nikki says, tell me about what Google is doing to help small businesses advertise. I heard a rumor that they were giving away grants and deals. I'm not sure. I think that, yeah, sorry about that, Nikki. I have seen a couple of things about Facebook giving some ad spend to small businesses, but I'm not 100% sure on what deals Google might be giving away for free. I'm sure you could Google it and answer those questions. Thank you for coming, Allison. All right. Sally says, I just don't want to post too long of a post on Facebook. And honestly, that's something you have to test. So you can really test things out by, doing a long form post and then doing a shorter post and see what does better. It's okay to make mistakes and post things and see how the engagement is. Learn from your audience. If something does better, then you know that that's what's working. So keep doing that. Rachel says, how do you recommend scheduling recycled content like quarterly posts if you're using the Excel spreadsheet? So what I do is whenever I am going into my next month or my next quarter worth of content, at the end of every month, I go through and I do an audit. So Sprout Social offers you to do some reporting to see what posts did the best, what got the most engagement, the most content, or the most comments. And I take those items and then just add them into the new schedule. So I'll say like, all right, so what graphic did the best? What statistic did the best? And then I'll just take them and add them into the next quarter. So that's how I recycle them. Michael says, our company has used Facebook in the past, but it turned into a social page instead of a business tool. We didn't have much success with it, whereas Pinterest and Instagram have been very successful. And that may be the case. So we have one client that we work with that their Facebook is actually more about their employees that they work with. And then they use other platforms like Instagram to be more outward facing. So you have to decide what's the best fit for your company. And one way to keep something from becoming too social is to kind of limit who is posting the content and who's engaging. So we have one person on our team that kind of fields that. So we have one person who's in charge of posting content and handling engagement and, kind of farming things out from there if they need to kind of make sure that it doesn't get too social with, I guess the phrase is too many cooks in the kitchen. You don't want to do that. Okay. Kimberly says, is it okay to post the same post to different platforms in the same day? Yes. There are different ways to do it too. So like say, we were talking to somebody recently who's really great at having blog articles. They have just really great content. They have a great, volume of blogs that are just there. So you can take a blog and maybe post that blog to LinkedIn. And then from there, you can pull out a couple key points and put them into a graphic. And that's really good for Instagram because like you can't post links to Instagram. So you can use the same piece of content and make it look a bunch of different ways. Then you could do a couple stories where you talk about parts of that blog and then put the link to the blog there, just tease it a little bit. So there are ways that you can take content and split it up that makes sense for each platform. So Twitter, you have a really finite amount of characters that you can use. So it's more impactful for you to just get to the point and then put the link. On LinkedIn, you can be a little bit more wordy, not as image based. And on Instagram, it's all image based. So you've got to get your message across in one graphic and a little bit of copy. Yes, so David pointed out that Canva is a good tool for using content. So, there are lots of really fancy tools that we like to use, like Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator. But the truth is, I love Canva. There's a free version of it that you can create templates to help you be consistent with your brand and your content too. So, we have a pro Canva account that we have templates that whenever I'm creating a lot of content, I can be consistent with what they look like. It's very user-friendly. You can even set up teams on Canva to be able to work on the same projects together. Yeah, Canva, Canva. And there are a couple others now too. I was just at Social Media Marketing World about 2 months ago, like before all of this happened. And there are a couple other really great options for creating content too. I know that a lot of people use Adobe Spark, which allows for you to create templates as well. So if you already have Adobe products, then you might already have Spark. Let's see. Yes, Melissa has Canva Pro, loves it. You can load in your logos and brand whatever you're doing. And it's just really great. You can upload images and videos in there to create content in Canva. Joanna says, Post My Wall is fairly good. It's not as intuitive as Canva. I haven't used that one yet. I'll have to check it out. Post My Wall. So I'm curious on if you can schedule straight from there. So like Canva has a feature where you can create content for Facebook and then you can just send it straight to your Facebook. I'm not that brave, but you can do that. What do you recommend for posting to multiple platforms like Buffer? So like I said, we use Sprout Social. We've used Buffer before. They have a free version of Buffer that allows for you to connect 3 different social media accounts and post up to 10 days at a time, I think it is. And so if you're just getting started and you want to create content and start scheduling it out, then Buffer is a really good tool for you to get started. You can also do some minimal reporting from Buffer as well. We use Sprout Social, and we've had some experience with Hey Orca as well as being bigger platforms to have multiple accounts. Or if you're scheduling for multiple different companies or different services, that's the way to go because you can create teams on there. Let's see. Chris says, on the schedule for posting on social media, it was really about every other day for the 3-month span. Then later you said post every day. Are you speaking specifically during this time every day? I sometimes think we can be posting too much. Yes, so posting every day, that's now. I recommend normally on Facebook or LinkedIn to post 3 times a week, 3 or 5 times a week, depending on what's happening with your brand right now. But really just, stay frequent. On Instagram and Twitter, that's a lot more active. And it's just because the type of audience that's on those platforms, your feed is refreshing a lot more consistently. Right now, though, because everyone is at home and we're all on social media constantly, that's where you're going to want to be posting every day just because the feed is refreshing at a much higher rate. The same is true for holidays. Whenever people are home, they're on social media a lot more. And so you can post more frequently during those times. Good. I'm glad that makes sense. Does anybody have any question about tools or processes that we use or anything like that? Also, my email address at the bottom, if you want for me to look at your social media pages or content and give you an audit or, tell you my opinion of it, then I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, I don't think I see any other questions coming in here. Oh, David put something in the, if you guys are following the chat, Nikki had asked about Google advertising and Facebook advertising grants and ad credits. And so he put some information in there with links if you're interested in that to go check it out. So other than that, I guess, reach out to us if you have any questions at all about social media or any of the other platforms that we didn't go through. If you want to know if that's a good fit for your brand, I'd love to talk to you about it. I could talk about this all day long. So thank you guys so much for coming. And I hope you have a really great Easter weekend and you're staying safe out there.